Hello, hello. My name is AK Ikwuakor, or Coach AK. I'm a 2006 Oregon alum, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the fifth episode in the Lundquist College Digital Speaker Series, where we've been able to connect with some incredible individuals who are really making the U of O an amazing place for students, faculty, and alumni. Now, in our last episode, we shared how the U of O's financial wellness program is empowering students to improve on their financial literacy. And today, we're going to be having a first of two-part discussion on how the Lundquist College has really reimagined business education through innovative programs such as the Business Academic Residential Community, or otherwise known as BizARC, and Flight School. And a little later, we're going to hear from students about their involvement and experience with these transformative programs. But first, I'd like to kick it off the conversation by introducing three of our panelists. First, we have the Associate Dean of Advising and Student Experiences, Collette Niland. Next, we have the Director of Business Honors Program, Eric Boggs. And last, we have the Academic Advisor to the Undergraduate Programs, Lorena Landeros. Hello, hello, how are you? Excited to have you on. So Eric, Collette, and Lorena, before we get into these exciting programs, can you tell us just a little bit about your background and really how you came to the U of O? And we'll start first with Eric.
Thanks for having us, AK. I'm excited for today's call. I'm Eric Boggs, and I design experiences to help people build a better understanding of their own leadership ability, that of others, within a community towards a common goal. And I do so in the LCB, in the classroom, in the MBA program, in the undergraduate program, as well as outside of the classroom for the executive MBA, for corporate and nonprofit clients, and in flight school, which we'll talk more about today. My background's a little bit different. I started in experience design, leading wilderness expeditions, sea kayaking in Patagonia, doing backpacking and mountaineering trips all over the world, and we'll dive into that later.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eric. We're going to dive in. I'm super excited. And next we have Lorena. Tell us a little bit about you and what brought you to the U of O and the work that you're doing.
Sure. Hi, AK. Good to see you again. So my name is Lorena Landeros. I am an academic advisor here for undergraduate programs. I also have the awesome role of being the program coordinator for the Business Academic Residential Community, lovingly known as the BizARC to our students. Before I came back to the U of O, I am an alumni, graduated in 2008. I worked for a nonprofit in Portland that focused on supporting our college and community college students across the state of Oregon. I came back to the U of O because I missed the yellow and green, and I worked in the admissions office recruiting future ducks. And working in the admissions office allowed me to really connect with students a little bit more intentionally, which is what led me back to advising. And I really enjoy the work here for undergrad programs.
Well, thank you, Lorena. And I do notice, I do see a little blue in there, but I'm just...
It's the lighting, It's the lighting,
because it affects the retina and all that, I get it. Well, thank you. We're going to be talking to you, Eric, and Lorena just in a little bit, but first we're going to have a conversation with Collette to talk about a high level of some of the exciting programs that are happening. So Collette, just tell us a little bit about what brought you to the U of O and some of the high level programming that's happening this year.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. I was working at the University of Illinois, and Oregon made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and basically said, come to Oregon, and we want you to redesign the undergraduate experience, and we're going to give you the latitude to build sort of transformative programs, and that doesn't come along every day. And so I found myself here and really enjoying it. And it's rare that people give you the latitude to just reimagine what life is like for students. And so I've really been enjoying building new programs.
But what does that mean when you say reimagined, especially when it comes to business education?
Yeah, well, it's funny, to a certain extent, where I started from was a deep understanding of what our students are capable of. I think we have underestimated what our undergraduates are capable of doing. And so the first thing I did was change the way we viewed them, which meant that instead of really thinking about them meeting checkpoints, it was really about empowering them and creating sort of super highways to information and knowledge, and really starting to think about the fact that the line between undergraduate and graduate education isn't where it should be, and that our students are capable of a lot of things that we felt were only appropriate for graduate level work, and to really give them opportunities to get stuck in, to really apply what they're learning, figure out sometimes that you fail, and that's okay. I fail on a daily basis. It keeps me strong.
I just learning what I shouldn't be doing,
Right, exactly. And, as everyone knows, I tend to grow daily. And so but it really is about saying, let's give students the opportunity to be creative in the way that they're acquiring skills.
And so in terms of these skills, I know you have some really impactful programs that are going on at the U of O. Can you just talk a little bit and give an overview of some of those two programs and what they entail?
Yes. Again, we've got two programs that we're going to talk about today, which is the BizARC and Flight School, which are really about sort of the front end of the student experience, right? We really want to start students off in a strong way, but also to have them sort of reimagine what education is. I think we become enamored of pieces of paper, and these programs are really designed to let them to understand why they're here, what skills are they trying to build, what are the opportunities that are out there, and what the importance of creativity, the importance of wrestling with problems, the importance of dealing with ambiguous situations, and what it takes to grow and to be resilient. So these are really focused on the front end, and to really start to talk about what it means to apply the skills that you have. So these are definitely focused on the first part of our students' journey with us. And again, in our second set, we'll talk about some of the programs that are a little later, which is our consulting group and our professional edge program.
Well, with a lot of that's happening around the world, innovation, technology, things are moving so fast.
Yeah.
And trying to keep up with that, what are some of the goals that these programs, we'll just say the U of O Business School is addressing? What are some of those goals? What are some of those things that are being implemented to really keep up with the speed of this innovation?
Exactly. Well, and this gets back to, you and I had this discussion about my concept of Legos.
Yeah.
This idea of creating stackable curriculum, and curriculum that can be stacked in innovative ways and distinctive ways. And so, we've really looked at not only the core curriculum, but the co-curriculum, and thinking about how we make that flexible and nimble and reactive. Sometimes universities are like big battleships. They're really hard to steer. And so the idea for us was to create opportunities where we could be more nimble in the types of opportunities that we offered students, and definitely to be more responsive to what's happening in industry. So a lot of our programs are about the ability to integrate that in. So, something that a student didn't imagine as a first-year student is available to them by the time they graduate, because we have this nimble co-curriculum that goes along with it. So those are some of the things that we've been working on with regards to that. And the other thing is just, I've got two main touchstones when I design a program. Does it make our students better educated? Which is one.
Yeah.
Does it help a student have less debt? And so we try to design programs that don't add to the student bill or enhance the student's skill set, so that what they earn when they get out of here is better. Occasionally, we design programs that are able to do both. And so for me, that's the key. When I can have a program that makes them better educated and doesn't add to the bill, I'm a happy camper.
So obviously, this is exciting for the business school and business students. Is there any programming or opportunities for outside of individuals that are pursuing a business major?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What's interesting about our dean, Sarah Nutter, is, she doesn't take the approach to business schools that, we have a drawbridge, you're not in it, let's, put the moat and everyone else is excluded. It really is about having the university float all boats. It's really about understanding the business school and its role in empowering the entire university population, which is why we've got the expanded group of specialized minors. It's why most of our co-curricular programs are open to non-majors. So if you want to be part of the consulting group, you don't have to be a business student. If you want to take a professional edge class, you don't have to be a business student. If you want to be in flight school, you don't necessarily have to be a business student. So, the idea is that we empower the entire community.
And I guess in terms of empowering outside of the community, how can alumni help really to support the university in redesigning business education?
Oh gosh, well, a multitude of ways. Obviously, when we're talking about applied experiences, being mentors, providing internships, in the professional edge program, having people come in and teach to our students on a variety of subjects. When on the less debt side, obviously scholarships and money to support our programs. The more that we can have people lean back and bring along the next generation by funding what we do, that's a game changer for us.
No, thank you, Collette, with just really providing a high-level overview of some of the initiatives and the programs that are upcoming and also just thriving currently. And so now we're going to just dive in a little bit deeper and talk about flight school. And to do that, I want to bring back Eric and also a student, Jess Thompson, to talk about her experience within flight school. Now, Jess, I know we're really excited to have you join us today. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about flight school. And Eric was introduced earlier, but Jess, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the U of O?
Yeah, of course. First off, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm a senior in Lundquist right now, majoring in business, and I'm minoring in creative writing and German. So really taking full advantage of all parts of the UO.
Okay. And what is your role within flight school?
I'm currently a mentor in flight school.
Okay. And now, Eric, I know this is the pilot year for flight school. Obviously, I think people are asking the question, like, why now? What was the impetus to start it this year?
Community, culture, belonging, well-being. These are all elements of the student experience that we anticipated would be more challenging than ever. And so even though we didn't have a fully polished product ready to launch, we launched anyway. The time's always right to do what's right. And so this year has been a prototype. We've experimented, we've taken risks. Amazing mentors like Jess have pitched in and helped us retool to figure out what works so that we can provide that co-curriculum, that support, that mentorship for students.
Well, I think on the same side, the business world is still trying to find ways to navigate during this, we'll say, kind of crazy year. And I know you have extensive experience with executives at some of the top companies in the world. So how have you seen the experiential leadership approach work at the corporate and at the student level?
It's a great question, AK. Google's working on the same thing right now. How can we have culture at work despite the distance? How can we have that sense of belonging, togetherness, collaboration, give each other advice? And the advantage of having a foot in the corporate world is that I have an ear out for all these different things. I get to see different programs, run some of them, learn from those, and see how executives are functioning and being challenged with their own resilience and leadership during this year filled with many crises. And they have a ton of experience, but maybe never anticipated this type of challenge. Similarly, we take some of that stuff, repackage it, and give it to first-year students and learn from them. Learn how to support them. In both cases, we're prototyping, retooling, and then redelivering so we can truly have human-centered design to help people build a greater understanding of their own leadership. It's not just something you can know. It's something that you have to be. And in order to be it, you have to practice it. You have to be okay with feedback. You have to be okay with a little bit of failure. And that opens a window into even more growth through learning and community.
And how has that been adapted? How are the students taken to that? And I'm also going to ask Jess the same question, obviously, because she's a student, but how are they adapting to this type of experience?
Yeah, these mentors, as I mentioned earlier, have been fantastic. So 2 months before this program started, We fully developed it, knowing very well that it would be imperfect. Then we ran through what we thought it could be and gave it to the mentors, and the mentors delivered their first session. They said, hey, here's what works. And they're not going to read that 15-page article, so let's scale it back. And so I've really relied on the mentors to ground truth some of this stuff and then repackage it. So a lot of our best ideas for curriculum have come from students. And flight school is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. The students show up with it, but they're not sure if they're going to have to use the spork or the toothpick or what tool that they have within that product. But I'll let Jess speak more about her experience.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, it's been fun that it's kind of a weird mixture of structured and completely flexible. So every week I show up prepared with, TED Talks or articles, all that kind of stuff. But I have a group chat with all my students, and if they have something specific they want to talk about that week, then we'll do that. Like one of my students wanted to apply for OCG. So that week we worked on building resumes, how to write a cover letter, interview tips, that kind of stuff. So it's fun. It's fun getting to have a structure, but when the students want to learn something else, then we can adapt to that.
But how did you hear about flight school, especially in the first year? Because you're obviously a mentor, but how did you learn about the program?
Yeah, I actually got approached by one of my wonderful professors, Professor Amy Nutzman. She was my professor for communication and leadership in the business school. And she approached me, said, there's this wonderful opportunity. I think you'd be great for it. I think you'd have a lot of fun with it. You should check it out. So I applied, went through all that, and now I'm here, and I'm really grateful for it.
Well, when I'm thinking about it, especially launching it this year, I think we can't forget during this pandemic that everything has been virtual. So both to you and Eric, how has that been to navigate that virtual side of things? And I would also say to you, Eric, to add on, outside of this virtual space, like what would you imagine it to be if all students were in the same place? But either of you can take that, but I'll say, let's kick it off to Eric first.
Thanks, AK. I'm also noticing a question in the chat. So flight school fundamentally is an hour-long meeting that mentors host once a week for a group of up to 10 students. And in that time together, they check in with them, see what their concerns are, what they appreciate, what's going well, and what resources or advice that they need. And so my analogy is I went to a big public high school. This was like a homeroom. There were no grades in homeroom. But you could study, you could work on, you could get advising tips, you could get career coaching. And so our mentors have really been tremendous in that regard of making that space, building community, building those relationships, being available, and then pivoting based on their students' needs. We've learned so much this year, and I'm excited for when we get back to person in the fall. And these homerooms, these flight schools can be meeting up in the sunshine in the quad. They could be sharing a cup of coffee. They could be sitting outside. They could be sitting in a room together, and really imagine these as accelerators or hubs for change. So the program isn't just for these students; it's through these students. These students are leaders in the BizARC, embodying these lead pillars, and so it's really phenomenal to imagine what we've learned this year and how much better it can be next year.
And then Jess, and also same question, but also if you could also add in is like, what are some of the topics that are covered as well?
Yeah, so the way I kind of look at my role is I want to make sure all of my students are as prepared as possible for not only Lundquist, but college as a whole. So we cover all kinds of topics. We do a lot of leadership topics, a lot of how to study for a test. We did that when one of my students told me they had a crazy final coming up and they were worried because they didn't know how to study because it was their first term of college kind of thing. So so we do a lot of leadership, common things like how to build a resume, how to study for a test, that sort of thing, how to go to an advisor, what the more career service is, things like that. Like I try and give them basically as much advice as possible for how to succeed later in college.
And within this relationship, because there's obviously a lot of students on campus that you're trying to support, so how many students work with a certain number of mentors? How's that figured out?
So we have, yeah, I think Eric might be able to take this one a little bit better because I think he'll know the logistics of that a little bit better.
Yeah, so we have 12 mentors, and in the beginning of every term, we solicit those the time availability for those mentors to host a flight school session. And so then on our website, students can sign up, and they can sign up for a time that works with them. We try to keep the group size really small, so 10 is the cap in terms of number of students, first-year students that can participate in it.
But I guess the question to you, Eric, is why the mentorship model, like especially for flight school?
It's a great question. These mentors really understand what it's like to be a student here now. A lot of things have changed since you and I were in undergrad, AK.
I don't know.
Yeah, and so they know the lay of the land. They know professors to talk to. They know the resources available in terms of mental health or hunger, well-being. They've got all the tips and tricks. And so, as you may know, I played sports in high school, and I learned some of my greatest lessons, not from the coach, but from the player coaches, from my teammates. And so these are like the older teammates on the squad that can help you out. And some of the things that are a little bit more intangible. It's not a clear guide to how to succeed in college, and mentors provide that excellent advice.
Well, it sounds like an amazing program. And let's say there's a student that's listening right now onto this on this session, and they wanted to get involved. Like, how do they get involved? How do they learn about it? How do they join? How do they sign up?
Yeah, the link is actually in the chat right now, and so they can hop on that and sign up. Of course, they can reach out to myself or Jess. Happy to answer questions and plug people into a time slot that works for them so they can connect with other folks that are eager to maximize their U of O experience.
Thank you. And I know when I'm thinking about flight school, since it's the first year and people are trying to figure out, like, how is it navigated? What's the systems? So to Jess, like, how is flight school structured? Is it free flow? Is it pretty, pretty much developed? And also, who develops the content and also the experiences?
Yeah, so each week, Eric will send the mentors sort of a layout of a structure that we could follow with a topic, with TED Talks, with articles, and that's there for us to follow. But like I mentioned earlier, I like to also reach out to my students individually, in our group chat, and ask if there's anything specific that week that they want to talk about. If not, I follow the curriculum pretty well. They watch their TED Talks, we discuss it, that sort of thing. But if there is something they want to talk about instead, then I definitely want to give them time to do that.
And is there training involved, or how are the mentors developed?
Yeah, we all went through a training with Eric. It was actually really fun, which is not something I usually say about job training, but all the mentors are so incredible. Eric is so much fun. We went through a lot of training. We have check-ins with Eric. We can reach out. We have so much support if we, have any questions, or if our student asks us something that we don't know how to answer. So we have a lot of support, and if we need it.
And is this only for first-year students, all students? Like, what students can be involved? And I guess at each level, be part of flight school, and also how old do you have to be or grade to be a mentor?
Right now I have freshmen, but I also have some transfer students, so they can join as well. And I think the rest of the question Eric should probably answer.
Yeah, so primarily first year and transfer students, but if your student is interested in joining, I'm sure we have a space for them. For the mentors, we'll do another round of training and hiring next fall. And so if you're interested, if this sounds something that you're curious about, reach out to me, and happy to share that information with you. It's a really great opportunity for students in their third or fourth year to gain valuable skills in facilitation. It's not quite teaching, it's not quite coaching, but they present some information, collect feedback, and as you know, that can be tricky work. One of my favorite ideas comes from a flight school mentor from a summer camp activity that she used to do, which is a rosebud thorn as a way of drawing people in. What's something good about the week? What's a pain in your side? And what are you hoping for? So the bud is something emergent. What are you hoping for? What are you looking forward to? And something like that is just a good example of student engagement or mentor input and finding things that really work for the students and get them to jump in, because Zoom is hard. It's hard to build community over Zoom, but these mentors are doing a fantastic job.
And what do you hope for the students by the time that they leave, or I guess graduate by the U of O, after they've gone through this flight school experience? That's from the student perspective. And I'll also ask, from the faculty perspective. And then Jess, what do you hope to gain from this experience by the time you leave the U of O?
So from the student perspective, by the time they wrap up a year in flight school, I hope to have this simple but complex feeling that they belong here. That they're a duck, they're a part of a community, and they have resources that support them. The second you might call self-efficacy, or I can do this. By working with mentors, they get a sense of what's possible, and that their mentors, Jess is a normal human person. She's done exceptional work, but by having those people that are close, more proximal to you in age, you really get a sense of what you're able to accomplish. So my hope is that putting them through this kind of human development, leadership development accelerator, that these flight school students are leaders of groups and clubs, involved in nonprofit organizations, helping our community, and of course, doing well academically.
Right. And then for you, Jess, what do you hope to gain by the time you graduate from the U of O with your involvement within flight school?
Yeah, like Eric said, this is such a unique experience for me because facilitation is unlike anything else I've done. I've had sort of teacher roles, I've had coaching roles, but facilitation really is completely different. So this experience is absolutely incredible, and I hope to, just be able to take everything that I've learned from this and apply it later in life. And then also, kind of like what Eric said, for my students, I really hope that by the end of this, they realize what an actual family Lundquist is. No matter where you turn, there's always someone there who can support you. And I really want to get that across to them.
And both of you talked about community. And is flight school connected to like any, for example, Expedition Oregon spring break programs or any other programs around campus?
Directly, no. Indirectly, flight school is a hub. Flight school is, per the name, a launch pad. And so students like Jess and all the other mentors are also connecting students to the clubs that they're involved in, to the advisors that they work with. And so it's a springboard into other programs because we have this broad knowledge of what students can engage in on campus.
Okay. And for, an alumni like myself, what are ways that I could support or we could support in helping flight school grow?
It's a great question. Stories are really powerful tools. We'd love to hear yours and have them be shared. If you haven't, as an alum, already signed up for Lundquist Connect, phenomenal platform to help share the mentorship of these students by connecting directly with them and professional networking.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Jess, for just diving in and talking about your experience and the direction of flight school. Now, next I'm going to be introducing two other programs, or one other program that we discussed earlier, the BizARC program, or the Business Academic Residential Community Program with Lorena. And we're also going to bring on a student, Kiara. Now, Lorena and Kiara, I know we're here to talk about, obviously BizARC, and we spoke with you a little bit earlier, Lorena, but first I just want to know a little bit more about Kiara and what brought you to the U of O and what you're excited about the BizARC program.
Yeah, so I am Chiara. I'm actually an international student from Italy, so I came a long way here to UO. I think the business school was definitely one of the reasons why I came here. I am in the business school. I'm majoring in accounting and minoring in Chinese. And yeah, right now I am a foreigner BizARC student, and currently I am a third year resident assistant in the BizARC. So far, so good. So I love it here.
You're doing well. And, Lorena, as we talk about the program, what are some of the goals and the vision for the BizARC program? And I guess how can students also get involved?
Sure. So we've been hearing the word community a lot in this conversation, and that's really what the business academic residential community is looking to do. We want our students who are making their way to the U of O to feel like they have a place here. Obviously, long term, our goal is to recruit students who are business majors and one of our business minors. But overall, at least for me, my goal is to have students feel like this is a good place. And if that means exploring, trying to figure out exactly where to go, who to meet, this is one of the best ways to do so. We try really hard within the BizARC to create programming and events around our lead pillars. So that's leadership, empowerment, academic achievement. Academic achievement and diversity and inclusion. And so our goal is to bring those in as much as we can. Students can get involved with the BizARC by applying to the U of O, obviously, and then applying for housing. We are one of many wonderful ARCs that are available to students that they can choose to attend, like Kiara talked about.
And what opportunities and also some of the resources are available for students?
Sure. So another one of my goals is to try to close the distance between Justice Bean Hall, which is on one side of the campus, and the Lundquist College of Business, which is on the other side of campus. So if you're a first-year student and you don't know what resources look like and you don't feel comfortable walking into a random office, even though you've been told that's where you should go, it can feel a little intimidating. So I'm just trying to bridge the gap. And so we try to bring essentially the Lundquist College of Business to the BizARC as much as we can. So our first-year students take their fall and their spring term classes together. In the fall, it's Introduction to Business, the BA 101 class, and in the spring, it is the Business Information Systems class. In the winter, they take classes that explore different concentrations and maybe some of the minors, so the Sports Business 250 or the Management 225 class. So it's the opportunity for them to see that there are other classes available to them, and they can choose between those. Other things that we provide for them, we do academic advising. So we just spent 5 days in the ARC doing in-person academic advising, which was, a little challenging in the time of COVID, but we managed to make it work. And I know that a lot of our students were really grateful to have some one-on-one advising. For our students who are a little bit more creative, we offer what we call the Innovation Lab. So students have the opportunity to use 3D printers and vinyl cutters and hand tools and software that allows them to be creative and maybe get out of the classroom a little bit. And so it's a wonderful opportunity for them to see that there are some really great resources available to them in Justice Bean Hall. And then other basic things, we do meet and greets for the majors, the concentrations, and the other big resources like Kiara, our residential assistant, our RAs. So they are usually business majors who are well-versed in being a business student, right? They know the professors, they know the program, and they can answer our residents' questions as much as possible.
Thank you, Lorena, for giving us a really detailed overview of the program. And I guess for Kiara, how did you even learn about BizARC? And why did you choose, this particular ARC over some of the others?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I am an international student, so I didn't attend the introduction. So I didn't really know what an academic residential community really was until I had to apply for housing. And that's when I found out that there was a business academic residential community. And luckily, I came into college knowing what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to pursue a career in business, specifically accounting. So out of all the options, there are many actually. I think this was the one that aligned with what I wanted to do in the future. And this is my 4th year basically getting involved with the BizARC. So it really says a lot about how I find it very helpful for me.
And how has it transformed your experience at the U of O?
In so many ways. So as I said, I was a resident my first year. And coming from a foreign country, it was definitely very overwhelming being in a new environment, in a campus with so many people that I didn't know. But it kind of gave me the feeling of a community and family far from home, just being surrounded by people that have the same, the shared passions that I have, helped me getting involved more. And honestly, ever since, I've been able to really just find out about all the opportunities that the business school has to offer, as well as UO, because as I think everybody mentioned earlier, the opportunities that we give to students are not just for business students, but also for students outside of the business school or for business students to find out opportunities outside of the business school. So
And you're talking about business schools and the ARCs. Are all dorms ARCs, or how is that the ARC system set up?
No, we have several arcs for different interests for students, but not all the dorms have necessarily one arc. But for example, here in Justice Mean, we have, I wouldn't be able to tell you how many we have, but we definitely have, okay, we have 5 arcs, and business arc is definitely one of them. Yeah.
Okay. And, when we think about it, we were talking earlier about flight school. What are some of the differences, and would you say, are there any similarity between BizARC and flight school? And is there any type of also interaction between the two? And I could that be for Lorena or even you, Kiara.
I'll let Lorena speak on it first.
Thanks, Kiara. So Flight School is a new development. Like Eric said, we were just looking for ways to make sure that our first year students were finding ways to get engaged. For the winter term, all ARC business ARC residents who are actually enrolled in flight school. And so it is an opportunity for students to find the mentorships and to find the resources that are available to them a little bit more one-on-one. The ARC itself can be a little large for our students. We have about 100 residents right now. On a normal non-COVID year, we have about 150 residents. So the flight school just helps facilitate some of that community, the one-on-one, the resources that our students are really looking for. There's definitely an overlap in the type of the resources, what students are looking for, the way that we engage, where we direct them, like Jess was talking about earlier about supporting students and directing them to say like more career services or supporting them when they're applying to things. Those obviously happen in the BizARC, so there is some overlap since the resources tend to be the same, but not all of our ARC residents are enrolled in flight school or have been taken advantage of flight school. We wish they would.
Okay, are they all freshmen, or what's the grade makeup?
For the BizARC?
Yeah, for BizARC.
The vast majority of our students are freshmen. I want to say like 99%. Every once in a while, we get a transfer student who is trying to find the lay of the land, wants to make connections, is looking for community. And that's really helpful for the rest of our BizARC residents too, because they do have a different background or have had different opportunities in their classes, and they can share some of their experiences to our first year students, but it's mostly first year residents.
We're talking a lot about community and also interaction and social. Now, before COVID, there were probably, like I heard, there was a lot of in-person activities. Now, if you are limiting interactions and even the density in the dorms, we'll say due to COVID, then what are some ways you're making this a positive experience for the students this year?
Yeah, it's been challenging, right? It's hard. Being a community on screen it can be really difficult for our students to feel like they're engaged and they are connected. But we have brought things to the residential community that students have taken advantage of. We host an orientation every year at the beginning of the term where they can meet each other and meet Collette and get to know their academic advisors, their RAs. This year it happened, but it happened on screen. So imagine 150 residents on a Zoom call. It was a little challenging. There was a lot of breakout rooms, but students got to meet their BA 101 instructor, which we haven't been able to do in the past just because of time commitment. So that was really great. They got to meet their BA 199 instructors, which is another class they take their fall term. It's a professional development class. They got to see their RAs more, so it was something that was consistent for them. Advising is another piece that we've been bringing to them in person. That's something that was a goal for me, is that we at least wanted them to know who their academic advisor was. We knew that students were going to face challenges academically that they haven't faced before, and we wanted them to make sure that they knew they had a person they could go to. We've had all types of questions. We've referred them to a lot of the same resources that the mentors in flight school have been referring them to. We want to make sure that students find a place and to find a home. The other piece are the RAs. They really are helping the BizARC be successful this year. I am in constant communication with them, maybe a little bit too much if the RAs will be honest about it. But my goal is for the RAs to share information, programs, events. And they've done a really great job of making sure that they are sending students to the right place. But we really have been trying to bridge the gap between Lilith and JB Hall. Actually, earlier this week, we had a sports business meet and greet. Whitney Wagner, who is the director of the Warsaw program, and some of her students were in in the residence hall, and they chatted a little bit about Warsaw and sports business and the majors and the minors, and we had some really great turnout. So we're still trying to work within the rules that we have to, and all the laws and the way they keep changing. We're adapting, but we are providing things for our students still.
Okay, well, you just mentioned sports and it just brought me up to like physical activity. I mean, is there opportunities that you offer for students to do, physical activities or even explore, Eugene community within BizARC?
Not the BizARC specifically, mostly because there's a lot of other great programs who are already doing that. And so one of the things that I do, as well as the RAs, is we tell students of great events that are happening across campus, right? We want them to take advantage of those resources. Students aren't reading their emails as much as we would want them to. And so sometimes me saying it and then the RA saying it and then putting it on a billboard, that usually gets students to finally realize that
that's life. I'm a parent. I get it.
And so we try. There are some wonderful things that are happening. The rec centers continue to do some. The clubs and orgs, both in the Lundquist College of Business but on campus, are still managing to do some pretty cool things. And we really are trying to get students to understand that they are still happening.
And similar to this can be for Kiara as well. As it's mid-year and students may be listening, or parents might be listening right now, and they say, "I want to join. I want to get involved." Are students allowed to get in anytime throughout the year? And if they do, how can they get involved?
They can, yeah. So it might not be in an official capacity because there are some housing applications and rules and all these things they have to go through. Unofficially, if they connect with me, I'm happy to let students know what's happening. If there's space in JB Hall, they'll have to take that through housing, obviously, if they want to live there. But if they're not living in Justice Bean and they want to know what's happening with the BizARC, they just have to connect with me. I send out a newsletter every couple of weeks. The ROAs are in the know. There's always something happening in the ARC pod, which is essentially like a lounge space for the residents to hang out in Justice Bean. So there's always something happening. I'm always happy to let students know and keep them in the know.
And during COVID, I'll say this to Kiara, we're talking a lot about, it's very, very social. It's very about interpersonal, really connecting with other students. How have you been able to navigate that during this current pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is hard. It is very, very challenging, even as an RA, even though this is my third year, this is obviously my first year being an RA during a pandemic. So I'm still adjusting as well. But I think thanks to the support that I have as an RA and also as a student, I've been able to really do the best that I can in this role. I think one of the good things is that we still have a good amount of students, even though we don't have 150 students, we still have 100 students that are interested in business. And luckily we have opportunities to have one-on-one conversation with the resident every term. So I just finished my first round of one-on-one this term, and that's a great opportunity to just connect and get to know the resident personally. And also it's a better way for me to connect them to whatever resources they need, even though, most of the things that we have right now are happening online. It's still a good way, to just start, I guess, this year with some connections on campus. And so far, I think the students have been able to connect among each other, also thanks to the classes that they need to take together. Most of them take the same classes because they're in the same major, and most of them are first year. So that's a great way for them to also create study groups. We have the ARC pod, which is a physical place where residents can meet in person. So I've been hearing a lot of my residents just studying together, and that's a great way for them to connect with each other as well as with me. So.
And this is, a final question for you, Kiara, is, what is something that you've learned from your residents for being an RA? What are some takeaways?
Oh my gosh, I think I am constantly learning from my residents, and I think just in general, by being a student here, I am constantly learning, honestly. I think just just having conversation with first year student, sometimes it does remind me how challenging it is sometimes to just come to a new school, being far from home, and I guess especially this year they really have taught me resiliency, as well as just how being determined really affects the way that they are successful in school. I'm just very impressed and inspired by how motivated they are to succeed in school, even though they are freshmen. And sometimes you don't expect that from a first-year student, but most of my residents are very motivated to just really get to know what's here at UO, and like they are very proactive. So that's something that I always appreciate, and it's also something that motivates me to continue to be proactive, even though I am a fourth-year student. So yeah, and then in general, just being surrounded by such a diverse group of students is always a good way for me to just learn from this different perspective, as well as from students that are international students as well. Like I have students that are my residents too. So that's also a good way for me to just, learn about different cultures as well.
And I guess we're talking about learning and also resources. As an alumni to you, Lorena, how can we help support and move this initiative forward as alumni?
Sure. I think Eric's mentioned about making connections and the Alumni Connect. For us, if you're in Eugene locally, you mentioned, do students get out? Is there things that we're doing? One thing that we wanted to start this past year was doing local site visits, right? Getting students out into the community, getting to know businesses, organizations, things that would allow them to make connections. So if anybody's local, we would love to connect. And if you're open to having, a few dozen of our ARC residents take over your space a little bit, we would love to chat with you. I think another thing is, we're always enhancing the ARC pod in this space. So we're starting a lending library for our residents for business textbooks. The Innovation Lab could always use some new technology, right? 3D printers are fun. I know that our residents are using them a lot. I have to keep finding new ways to get students more involved. So if anybody wants to chat about being in the ARC or connecting with students in the ARC, I would love to have alumni connect with me.
Thank you, Lorena, and also thank you, Kiara. I'm gonna have you stay on, but bring back Eric and bring back Collette to just do a final question. But Lorena, Eric, and Collette, as we kind of close out today's session, as we had people listening from all around the world, is within each of your individual programs, what's one thing that you're more excited about that you'd want the alumni or the listeners to learn about your individual areas? And I know I kind of put you on the spot a little bit, but what is one thing, as you can think about it, that you would want us to know about the amazing work that you're doing?
I was going to let Eric start because he always has something to say. For me is, and I think you can see that from today, is, we're always creating new opportunities, and that the fact that so many of the people I work with are so impassioned about how we can do it better and continuously improve. So there's 100 things that we're always trying simultaneously. So I can't identify one. A matter of fact, I think most people are like, I need a 12-step program for being addicted to building programs. I have a problem, a real problem, just a little one.
Okay.
I'll start.
Well, what I heard Collette is like, to really move things forward, it takes a team, and there's just a lot of different pieces that are in play to really make this happen. And I see it as an alumni, like there's so many different ways that we can support, because it takes a team and all of these little different intentional moves to make it happen. So thank you, Collette. And Lorena, Eric.
I can go, Eric, if you'd like. So one of the things that I'm looking for is to have the ARC really live up to its potential. So we just moved from Earl Hall to Justice Bean Hall. So this is our first time in Bean Hall. And so when we moved, we had all these great ideas on how to use the space. The space is wonderful, a lot of opportunities. And then the pandemic hit, right? And so all of these things that we want to do, all these plans and all these goals kind of had to take a little bit of a step back. Obviously, we're still doing some amazing things, but I know that we can do some bigger and better things, including site visits. We want to create a sub-arc for our other majors and concentration. Sports business will be the first one on deck for winter. We want to have more specific programs and events. So really, it's just allowing us to, one, get settled in Just As Bean, but really allow this program to get to where it can be, and using as many of our resources, getting Flight School fully implemented in Just As Bean. So there's a lot of things that we can do. The pandemic has put a little bit of a halt, but I'm excited that, fall will be in person and we can start to really move it in the direction that we want it to.
Thank you, Lorena. And to close out the show.
It's exciting to think about the future, and the present has been impressive as well. I love the adage, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor, and we have a lot of skilled sailors in our community. Our mentors have been phenomenal. They're not just facilitating learning, they're facilitating unlearning. And one of the things that we're working on is that leadership isn't just a position or a title. It's an attitude, it's a mindset that our students are working on. And so our mentors have been phenomenal in that. And I'm really proud of them and my colleagues, and feel supported by the College of Business to be entrepreneurial and creative in times of crisis, so we can build community and that sense of belonging that's so valuable to your education.
So I just want to say thank you, Collette, Eric, and Lorena, for talking about the programs and the work that you are doing. I'd have to say 100%. It's something that I wish I had when I was a student so many years ago, before I had to dye my beard and take out the grays, but just, it's what life brings. It's what life brings. But, we weren't able to answer every single one of the questions today, but for our next series, we will be answering some questions and talking about 2 additional programs that we're offering to students. Now, I guess what, it's really an exciting time as we know to really be a student, and something that I said before that I wish I could join them on this journey. And for this second part of our discussion, happening on April 8th, of which you'll be able to actually register in the chat, is we'll be actually talking more about the professional edge and the Oregon Consulting Group. We were excited and hope to see you there. Now, once again, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join this conversation and to support the work we're doing here at the Business School. Until next time, my name is A.K. Ikwuakor, and then just have a good morning, have a good afternoon, good night, wherever you are around the world. And go Ducks. Take care, y'all.